All right. I think my volume is up. All right, now push one in the chat if you can hear me. All right, got the confirmation. Thank you for that confirmation. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 572, Black Tech Talk. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. There's a doc in the description beneath the video for you to follow along with. If you want to engage in this discussion, there'll be a link in the chat for you to click on. When you click on the link, make sure you raise your hand so that one of us can acknowledge you and advance you to the panel. Just as an FYI, as usual, we still offer IT mentorship for those trying to get into IT for the first time. If you're going from one IT role to another, we do offer IT coaching. If you have any questions about salaries, negotiations, and wages, we do offer advice in that area. And if you're trying to get into IT from a contractual perspective, Code 11 does have recs available in the tri-state area. Let me find the link, drop it in the chat, and then we'll just get started. All right, so first on the docket is from Forbes.com. 10 wonderful examples of using artificial intelligence for good. One of the main benefits of using AI is to help us view societal problems with a different perspective. While there's been much hubbub about how AI might be misused, we must not overlook the many ways AI can be used for good. Our global issues are complex, and AI provides us with a valuable tool to augment human efforts to come up with solutions to vexing problems. Here are 10 of the best ways artificial intelligence is used for good. Cancer screening. Artificial intelligence powered by deep learning algorithms is already in use in healthcare. Specifically, AI's imaging capabilities are promising for cancer identification and screening, including breast cancer. Artificial intelligence is also used to predict the development of diseases across a healthcare network. A group at Mount Sinai used deep learning-based AI algorithms to predict the development of diseases with 94% accuracy, including cancers of liver, rectum, and prostate. Thanks to published cancer research, clinical trials, and drug development, there's a plethora of data that AI can help to review and then guide healthcare decision-making. Save the Bees. It's a project for saving the bees using artificial intelligence. Tools for people with disabilities. This is actually very fundamental. Another way artificial intelligence is used for good is to help people with disabilities overcome them. Huawei used AI and augmented reality to create StorySign, a free mobile app that helps deaf children learn to read by translating the text into sign language. The company also created Track.ai, an easy-to-use, affordable device that can identify visual disorders in children so treatment can begin before the disorders cause blindness. Facing Emotions, another AI app created by Huawei, translates emotion into short and simple sounds. The app assesses the emotion it sees on another person's face, on another face, to help blind people see the emotion on the person they are talking with. The app uses the rear camera on the phone to evaluate the nose, mouth, eyebrows, and eyes. And artificial intelligence to analyze the expression on these facial features and what emotion they convey: contempt, anger, fear, disgust, sadness, happiness, and surprise. This is actually really good use of using AI. Okay, I know we talk about the ethical issues of AI, but um, this is actually a very good use case for it. Although you would have to, if you're a non-sighted person, you would have to actually hold your phone up. In this kind of climate, I worry that those phones can be snatched out of a person's hands or be knocked out of their hands, which causes disruption. I like the idea, though. I think that using something like a pendulum with a camera on it, a tiny camera on it to actually interpret this stuff through Bluetooth to the phone itself could actually be a strategic use case for it. But I do think that AI can be very much leveraged for this. I've always wondered about ways to actually do that, but this use case is actually making the claim for me. Climate change. We can make tremendous progress in solving one of the world's biggest issues with the support of artificial intelligence. Climate change is a gargantuan problem, but several thought leaders in AI and machine learning believe technology might be able to tackle it. Machine learning can improve climate informatics. Machine learning algorithms power approximately 30 climate models used by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Artificial intelligence can also help educate and predict the impacts of climate change on different regions. Researchers from the Montreal Institute for Learning Algorithms, MILA, use GANs, generative adversarial networks, to simulate the damage of severe storm and rising sea levels. Yeah, this is another area I think, if you want to just relate it to Black people, climate change in predominantly Black neighborhoods, right? How smog is killing Black people and actually accelerating the contraction of COVID, okay? Respiratory issues and so on and so forth. I think somebody should be working on something like this in the near future. Wildlife conservation. Another way AI is put to work for the planet is in conservation efforts, and allows underfunded conservationists an opportunity to analyze data inexpensively. A team from the University of Hawaii, Kauai Endangered Seabird Recovery Project used AI to analyze 600 hours of audio to detect the number of collisions between birds and power lines. Interesting. In another effort to halt the decline of the endangered species by using AI, the University of South Carolina Center for Artificial Intelligence in Society uses an unmanned aerial vehicle to spot poachers and locate animals. The data collected by the drone is sent back to be analyzed by machine learning tools that use game theory to help predict a poacher and animal activity. AI is also used by WildMe and Microsoft to automatically recognize, log, and track endangered animals like whale sharks by analyzing photos people upload to the internet. This is interesting. When I was on the continent a couple months ago, the talk about, building out Africa's infrastructure and the qualms of running into, Africa's wildlife. You don't want to disrupt the animal life cycle in the wildlife. And so a lot of African population is centered in urban areas for a reason. They can't really live out there, and you can't really build infrastructure in the middle of the Sahara, right? It doesn't work that way. And so what I'm saying here is Africa has a problem with poachers, mostly from Southeast Asia. It's a very lucrative market. It's $1 billion market for elephant tusks and rhino tusks. Okay, they want the ivory, and they also want some of these leopards and lions and stuff like that for pets. Okay, they pay big money for that type of stuff. Tiger paws and stuff like that all throughout Asia. These things need to be safeguarded. but you don't have the manpower to go out and do it, and you're not going to throw up a satellite just to do that too. And so, using AI and drones, what they consider UAVs, this is possible. Okay, this is very possible. Using computer vision (CV) to spot people's faces, spot human movement versus animal movement, tracking all that stuff, putting it all into the system, analyzing it real quick in the cloud, and shooting it back down, and and putting manpower on the ground strategically at places that need it the most in order to stop some of these poachers. Okay, this is a big problem in Africa, on the continent. So definitely something that we should be paying attention to. Combat world hunger. One of the most viable tools in the fight to end the world hunger crisis is artificial intelligence. It can analyze millions of data points to help determine the perfect crop, develop seed, maximize current output, and control herbicide application precisely. Many applications are already in. Many applications are in use already, but one we'll highlight here is the Nutrition Early Warning System (NEWS) that uses machine learning and big data to identify regions that are at increased risk of food shortages due to crop failure, rising food prices, and drought. Yeah, this is actually a really good use case as well. AI in agriculture, okay? How to conserve food, improve food security. These are very much discussions that were being had on the continent. No one has really come up with an absolute solution for it. This is where IoT comes in, cloud computing, 5G internet, even 4G for that matter. Drones and things of that nature, the ability to have, to leverage edge computing. It's just a myriad of technologies that are emerging that can actually help to solve some of these issues. And, when I was on a continent back in March, these were discussions that were being had: blockchain, cloud computing, AI, machine learning, okay, computer vision, okay, facial recognition, item recognition. The ability for a camera to really look at a landscape and identify corn and apples and other sorts of perishable goods is very much needed. Okay. Reducing inequality and poverty. Although one of the criticism with AI algorithms is the human bias that can be introduced via skewed algorithms or training data sets, AI can actually help reduce inequalities. The Center for Data Science and Public Policy of the University of Chicago's project, Equitas, in IBM AI Fairness 360 are open source toolkits that can track and correct bias. Smart Text Editor, Textio, that makes job descriptions more inclusive, help one publisher grow its percentage of women recruits to 57% from just 10% previously. Imperial College of London is training AI to identify inequality based on street images of living conditions in cities, with the aim to ultimately use this information to improve the situations. Similarly, AI analyzes satellite imagery in a Stanford University project to predict regions of poverty, which can then influence economic aid. Another way AI machine learning is working to end poverty is through IBM's Science for Social Good directive, simpler voice to overcome illiteracy. This is actually really interesting. I never thought about it from this perspective, but they seem to have gotten it right. And I'm pretty sure there's ways that we can actually increase and add on to this. All right, that's the end of it. We covered most of this stuff before, but I do think that, one of the takeaways for me is climate change and wildlife conservation. Really, really big factors. When I was in Kigali back in February, they had the African Drone Expo. There's a lot of demand for drones on the continent, and the use cases of poaching, counter poaching is really, really big now. Okay. You think about a US military drone, the Predator, that's a multi-million-dollar drone. A lot of African governments, a lot of Latin American governments don't have that kind of money just laying around. They just don't have it. Okay. So how do you come up with a solution that's going to be affordable and actually do good on the social impact side of things? Got to have drones that's going to be cost effective in systems like AI, machine learning, blockchain, cloud computing, facial recognition, so on and so forth. These type of things have to be put into play. When you guys might be a consultant, you might go to the continent, you might go to Latin America, okay, you might go to Central Asia, you might be able to come up with something. Yeah, definitely. Think that wildlife conservation and climate change are two areas of my concern. So a lot of people are probably looking like, well, what's up with how do we get involved in AI? Well, let me recommend. Glad you asked, because Udacity just so happens to have a program, the School of Artificial Intelligence. Okay. AI for healthcare, AI for IoT developers, AI for business leaders, Intro to Machine Learning with TensorFlow, AI Product Manager, Intro to Machine Learning with PyTorch, Machine Learning Engineer, AI Programming with Python, Deep Learning, Artificial Intelligence for Trading, Computer Vision, we just talked about that, Natural Language Processing, okay? Deep Reinforcement Learning, Artificial Intelligence. There's a lot that can come out of this if you were to take one of these programs. This doesn't mean that you go to school for 4 years to get a degree. This is a 6-month program. Okay. Let me drop that in the chat for those who might be interested. Okay. All right, let me get to the next item on the docket. All right, next item on the docket is from Tech Radar, cloud computing versus edge computing. We talked about this before. Let me delve into this one more time. What is this? Cloud computing isn't exactly a new concept. It benefits all well known in the business world, and without it, we wouldn't have a large number of services that companies of all sizes rely on today. It's no surprise that then that 85% of companies believe cloud adoption is necessary for innovation. However, it is during the current COVID-19 crisis that cloud has really come into its own, enabling millions of companies around the world to continue to operate whilst almost all their workforce logs on from home. Newer concepts like edge computing are regularly discussed alongside the cloud, often as if they are each exclusive approaches to infrastructure. However, using one does not eliminate the ability to use the other. Some people also believe that edge computing will eventually replace traditional cloud computing. However, this isn't the case. Both technologies have important and distinguishable roles within an IT ecosystem. That being said, There are use cases where edge computing has advantages over traditional centralized cloud infrastructure, especially during this unprecedented increase in remote working, including overcoming latency issues, operational strain, and security. So, what do these advantages look like? When comparing traditional cloud computing and edge computing, the main difference is how and where data processing takes place. With cloud, data is stored and processed in a central location, whereas edge computing refers to data processing near the source itself. So when you talk about edge, you're talking about a device that's collecting and managing the operations of the data that is being fed to it closer to the street level. So cloud, your cloud infrastructure could be, let's say in New York, but if I'm all the way in, say, Providence, Rhode Island, I don't want to have to send all that data to New York City. I want to be able to process all of that right there in Providence. That can be done with edge computing. That's the purpose of edge computing. Bring these bring the infrastructure closer to the source itself. When comparing traditional, sorry, we already live in a data-rich world with the proliferation of new technologies such as IoT, 5G, and wearables and assisted reality, creating vast amounts of data that is generated close to the user or at the edge of the network. Remote working only adds to this as more and more devices try to access company networks outside of the central locations like offices. The cloud itself has significant compute and online storage capabilities. However, with such strain on network bandwidth, it requires a different type of infrastructure. This is where edge computing comes in. Completely overhauling IT infrastructure to cope with this demand can be expensive and resource heavy for businesses. With data computing, you don't need to rip and replace infrastructure. Edge computing allows companies to resolve this challenge as processing data at the edge reduces strain on the cloud. In conjunction with the data edge centers, edge computing can tackle more localized data processing, freeing up the cloud for more general purpose business needs and helping business applications perform faster. Yeah, so what we're looking at here is a lot of your complex devices that are happening closer into the environment itself. You have autonomous vehicles, drones, traffic lights, infrastructure management systems like electrical grid and whatnot. People activity at peak time, people activity off peak time. All of this data is being generated in real time. I don't want to have to send it all the way to New York City or send it all the way to Atlanta to be processed. That stuff should be processed right in the same location where it's being generated. That's the purpose of edge. Okay, that's the purpose of edge. With the nature of the cloud, information is relayed back to the data center, processed, and then sent back to the edge of the network where the device is. This can take time for data to travel back and forth and can cause lag or latency. In many use cases where the need to process data is not time efficient, the cloud offers lots of processing power, storage, and large-scale data analysis. However, in some cases, such latency can cause challenges for remote workers. For example, during the COVID-19 crisis, employees have heavily depended on video conferencing, and this relies on real-time connectivity. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Networks were overflooded. You couldn't do anything. The infrastructure that we had previously, even with the cloud, was not, sufficient enough for, these sort of new tasks and new responsibilities. The former example of an office worker is perhaps not mission critical. However, a network-related issue, latency, can have a more detrimental effect for different for a different kind of remote worker. Those working as frontline or field worker, for example, imagine a staff member working in a warehouse using the pick by vision setting on AR smart glasses. They are wearing to a system with the manual order picking, sorting, inventory management, goods, receipts, and removal processes. If latency occurs during this process and the worker receives delayed information, this can significantly impede their productivity and even cause ongoing fulfillment errors, which will inevitably affect a company's bottom line. Edge computing offers a solution to this by relocating data processing closer to the device at the edge of the network, eliminating latency and therefore reducing incidences of network lag related failure. Yeah, so AWS came out with a product called Snow Cone, and it's a micro edge computing device. It's about the size of a shoebox. Okay, it's about the size of a shoebox. This thing plugs into your local infrastructure and then process and basically does all of the edge work there, and then sends it off to the cloud later. Okay, this is where we are right now. Okay, a box the size of a pair of Air Jordans is being used to actually be a edge computing device. It's specifically built for that purpose. You're going to see a lot more of that stuff in the next year and a half. This is why edge is important. Advantage 3, security and privacy. As more people are working away from the office, there is an increase in data being accessed remotely. Increased incidences of remote access gives cyber criminals a greater opportunity to access company data and misuse the information within. With edge computing, data is filtered and processed locally rather than sending it to a central data center before being sent to the organization's network core via the cloud. If there is less transfer of sensitive data between devices and the cloud, this means better security for business and their customers. COVID-19 has no doubt altered the working landscape, which had meant business leaders had to rethink their remote working strategies. During this period, the cloud has allowed for data to be shared across organizations securely. However, as discussed, there are instances where edge computing can help to ease bandwidth, increase network speeds, and combat security concerns. Choosing edge or cloud computing isn't an either or proposition. Both technologies have different purposes and uses and will continue to have important roles for the foreseeable future. As remote working becomes the new norm for business, it is predictable that the future network infrastructure will combine the two. Yeah. One goes with the other. In basketball, in the backcourt, you have a point guard and a shooting guard. You know, that's what it is. Okay. When it comes to cloud, you have general purpose cloud, and then you have edge specific cloud. That's where we are. And now you have micro edge. You also have, IoT, industrial IoT, IoT. Okay, these are devices that connect to the edge. The edge connects to the cloud. It's a hub and spoke sort of perspective. At some point, you're going to need all of these systems to connect and talk to each other. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next item on the docket from Forbes. It's the end of infrastructure as a service as we know it. Here's what's next. A decade ago, running virtual machines in the cloud was state of the art. It made cloud migration relatively simple. Companies could just shift the VMs they were already running on their on-premises services to their servers of an infrastructure as a service vendor. Freed from the burden of physical server maintenance, companies gain flexibility and cut costs. But today, no one is building new applications based on VMs. Instead, they are turning to two models that are more cost effective. Low maintenance and scalable than VMs can ever hope to be. Containerization and serverless computing. These two models, not VMs, represent the future of compute. The recent history of IT infrastructure is the story of abstraction. Since the 1990s, when we ran applications on hardware and physical racks, imagine that, even new development has abstracted applications from hardware further and further. So the slice of infrastructure that companies had to had to manage grew thinner and thinner. But the infrastructure as a service model of running VMs in the cloud is hardly the last step in that progression. VMs have some significant downside. The fact that each VM runs multiple operating systems inevitably creates inefficiencies. Even when they are scaled and sized properly, which isn't a given, VMs leave a lot of unused capacity on servers. This is very true, okay? This is very true, because if you take into consideration one VM on one server or something like that, a lot of the potential processing in memory capabilities has been granularly carved out for purposes of that specific VM. You got quad core servers, 32 gigs of memory, 64 gigs of memory, 128 gigs of memory, okay? 5 terabytes of fast storage, 10 terabytes of fast storage. A lot of that capacity, resource capacity, is not being fully used. It's not being fully realized. You might have carved that VM out only for a specific purpose of being a domain controller, or running, what do you call it? I forget it right now. I don't even know how I could forget something like that. Yeah, running some of these, very specific services that are not necessarily needed. VMs still leave companies responsible for painful op exercises like disaster recovery, high availability, and scaling, as well as patching and security. Yeah, this is very true. Unless you have a good DR strategy, you're screwed. Okay, you're very screwed. VMs aren't very flexible and work differently on different hyperscalers. So a VM built on Microsoft Azure can't be migrated to AWS or Google Cloud. This is very true. Okay, this is very true. There's no interoperability between the three. Companies are still trying to migrate to the cloud by migrating their VMs. Should think twice. Committing to an inefficient model now will hold back progress in the future. Instead, companies should look to containerization or a serverless model, even if it requires significant changes to their processes. Yeah, this is true. This is true. VMs are so mid 2000s. Okay, that was 2005, 2006, 2008, 2010. Okay, even 2012 for that matter. That was VMs. We're not having that conversation anymore. We're talking about containers. We're talking about Docker. We're talking about serverless micro services computing models. Okay, that's where we are right now. It's 2020. VMs were 10, 12 years ago. We don't do that anymore. Containers are the next step in the abstraction trend. Multiple containers can run on a single OS kernel, which means they use resources more efficiently than VMs. In fact, on the infrastructure required for one VM, you could run a dozen containers. Yes. Yes, this is true. However, containers do have their downsides. While they are more space efficient than VM, they still take up infrastructure capacity when idle, running up unnecessary costs. To reduce these costs to the absolute minimum, companies have another choice: go serverless. The serverless model works best with event-driven applications. Applications are where a finite event, like a user accessing a web app, triggers the need for compute. With serverless, the company never has to pay for idle time, only for the milliseconds of compute time used in processing a request. This makes serverless very inexpensive when a company is getting started at a small volume, while also reducing operational overhead as applications grow in scale. This is very true. I worked for a company a few years ago where they had an AWS bill that ran up to $1 million. Nobody knew about it because they had idle containers taking up time. Okay, and it was running up the AWS bill. Now, there's probably mechanisms in place that you can use to actually monitor this type of stuff, but no one was paying attention to that. Okay. And so you need something like serverless computing that's event-driven. Okay. Event-driven means similar to smart contracts on a blockchain. Okay. Simple analogy is I go to a soda machine, I put in $1, I select what I want, it gives me back as a response, the machine gives me the soda of choice. And if the soda is not available at the time of selection, it gives me back my money. That's event-driven processes, okay? That's a smart contract. Smart contract is an event-driven process. It has business logic that says, if you meet these standards or you meet its compliance, then we can create, finish the interaction. If you don't meet the standards necessary for the logic to take place, it's never going to work. Event-driven services are similar in that theory. Mm-hmm. Let me close my window since the neighbors are going nuts. Transitioning to containerization or a serverless model requires major changes to your IT team's processes and structure, and thoughtful choices about how to carry out the transition itself. If you can go serverless, you should. It's the most cost-efficient and forward-looking IT infrastructure model today. However, serverless represents an entirely new programming paradigm. Implementing it is usually only feasible when your team is coding something new from scratch. By contrast, containers are the most convenient solution if you're refactoring or replatforming an application. The leading container framework, Kubernetes, is also universally accepted across hyperscalers, which makes containers ideal for maintaining cross-cloud portability or hybrid portability, running the same applications on premises as in the cloud. Yeah, this is true. There are many banking corporations that started off, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, that are stuck on legacy applications that they can't get off. Okay, that means you would have to copy the business function, the logic of that application into a serverless model. Okay, and you would have to leverage containerization as well if you want to get it into the cloud. Okay, and that means you have to write all the code from scratch. There's a lot of opportunity for, cloud engineering right now. It's really a hot market. It's probably one of the hottest markets behind blockchain and artificial intelligence. By contrast, the transition to modern IT infrastructure is a people and process transformation as much as it is a technology transformation. Traditional IT infrastructure management relies heavily on manual point-and-click solutions. By contrast, managing containerized or serverless infrastructure is more like software engineering. IT teams use code to describe the end result they want, and automated systems spin it up. To take full advantage of the flexibility and efficiency afforded by modern infrastructure, IT teams must shift to what's known as Devops Orientation. We talked about this many times before on here, which brings agile software development practices to infrastructure management. For example, traditional enterprise IT teams tend to be siloed by function, but DevOps takes a more agile approach where one team owns an application from end to end. Adjusting to this new way of working is necessary for the success of your infrastructure transition. This is very important. Okay. The early 2000s, mid 2000s, late 2000s, that was the way people did business in IT. Okay. Point and click, siloed teams. You didn't know what the database guys were doing. You didn't know what the network guys were doing. You didn't know what the cybersecurity people were doing. You knew they were there. Everybody knew everyone was there, but it was very siloed, and you couldn't communicate what the next move was. Cybersecurity had no idea that a new application was being developed by software, the software team, and the database guys were kind of working with the software team on the database, but they were more or less focused on data governance. Okay, they didn't have any real communication at that level. That's changing now. Okay, that's changing. If you want to move into cloud computing, you have to adopt DevOps or some form of agile methodology to get everyone on board so that everyone moves at the same pace. Okay. There are many third-party software stacks out there that claim to make the transition to containers and serverless easier. However, in the end, these leaky abstractions can just add extra steps and additional costs. While they may simplify the initial transition, as you grow more sophisticated, you'll eventually have needs that they likely can't handle. Instead, you should cut out the middleman from the beginning and use open source solutions like active communities, like Kubernetes, or adopt solutions from the hyperscalers. There may be a steeper learning curve, but it will save your IT team's time down the line. You don't have to transition to containers or serverless in one go, which is extremely difficult to do. Instead, transition from services to containers while leaving the rest of your application the same. You can transition more services over time until the application is fully containerized. This incremental adoption strategy is known as the strangler method. Since the new code slowly strangles the old, this slow and steady strategy also gives your IT teams time to adjust to new ways of working. This is true. This is very true. The market for VMs probably won't fall off overnight. There are too many legacy systems already running on that infrastructure in the cloud. However, that doesn't change the fact that containers and serverless are more flexible, lower maintenance, easier to automate, and more cost efficient. They are the future of compute, and companies should get on board. Okay? This is true. You know, talking about you have VMs and or even bragging about VMs is equivalent of saying I have dual airbags in my car. Okay. In the 1980s, saying you had dual airbags was a thing. You were blown away. Dual airbags, what are you? That's a luxury car. Now that's standard. That's standard practice. Saying you have serverless compute and containerization means that, you know, in equivalency of a car, you're talking about you have a hybrid. Okay. You have a plug-in hybrid or a fully electric vehicle. That's where we are right now. The blockchain goes inside the container goes inside the cloud can be hybridized to the edge or pushed to the edge so that they get faster processing time, closer to the source itself of the device. Okay. AI is put inside of a container. Okay. Machine learning put inside of a container. You have 3 different containers now. You have a blockchain, you have AI, you have machine learning. You have a 4th container where output is put directly into. You have a 5th container where quite possibly CouchDB, MongoDB, one of these other DBs are put inside that container. Okay. You have event-driven services, which is serverless compute. Event-driven, meaning that, you know, I pass through a toll booth, a section of the city that has a required toll, sees my license plate, camera sees my license plate, records that function. That function goes into a system, maybe on the AI side, maybe on the ML side, collects all that data, processes it in the serverless side of compute, and then gives me some results, and then starts the cycle all over again. I get a bill at the end of the month or at the end of the day for how many tolls I pass by in a certain city, in a certain region. That's how this all works. This is where we are right now. Okay. Now, some people have been asking me the last few weeks about CompTIA Cloud Plus. Should I get it? Should I not get it? Is it worth getting? In my opinion, you don't get Cloud Plus by itself. You get Cloud Plus because you plan on adding something else additional to it. Okay. You're not getting Cloud Plus to get a job. You're getting Cloud Plus to let others know where you stand knowledge-wise. Okay. If Keep It Techie came to me for a job interview on a role, and I see he has Cloud Plus, I don't have to have the deep conversations about very simplistic questions about cloud. I don't have to ask him about what is IaaS, what is PaaS. Okay. I don't have to ask him about what platform as a service is. I don't have to ask him about infrastructure as a service, software as a service. I don't have to have that conversation. He's proven that he has that certification, so therefore we can move on and start talking about something more meaningful, like personality. What does he want from the organization? What does he bring into the organization? What does he see in the future of cloud? There is no right or wrong answer. It's just, is it more applicable to what we're looking for? Okay. That's why you get a Cloud Plus. Unless you want to work for the government, even the government, may have some stipulations that maybe in 45 days you may need to take the Cloud Plus, for one of their vendors or something like that. Maybe not Lenovo, um, maybe Rackspace or somebody like that says, hey, is this guy certified? I don't know if we want to be talking to somebody who may not be certified. There's nothing wrong with getting a Cloud Plus. Everybody hates CompTIA until it's time to use CompTIA. Okay. We have engineering cannabis on the panel.
Hey, what's up, Mike?
Too much, bro.
With the Cloud Plus certification, I agree with you because currently I'm trying to get the cloud data science search right now. I'm basically focusing on AWS. Again, the certification is important, and especially because now everything now is moving into the cloud. How to do machine learning, deep learning, and all that. And the two most cloud organization again is Azure and AWS. And I'm currently using AWS currently. I'm trying to get the certification on data science. So yes, the cloud CompTIA Cloud Plus, I believe is going to be it's going to be a huge requirement, especially when you're dealing with the cloud, especially when you're trying to basically learn it. So yes, that's important. And also the first article you read on the turn application of AI. I thought that was a brilliant article because it touches how AI is basically utilized worldwide, not only in a central place, but how is utilized in ways nobody's being thought of, where it's now utilized in dealing with poaching, dealing with bee migration, dealing with a lot of stuff. So even with that, you can even if you read the article, you can take some of those the way they do that to apply it to another application. So if you see the way they deal with tracking poachers, you can use that in a security system where you can apply that to a physical security. Maybe Uber needs more security. How can you use that technology in helping Uber deal with the security issues with AI and all that? So again, these are ways you should be thinking in terms of AI. Take what's being utilized and existing and try to formulate in something a problem that you can see and then utilize that to solve a problem. So again, the articles were spot on, especially the AI and currently with the cloud, because right now cloud and AI go hand in hand, and most startups right now utilize cloud because the cloud basically it's inexpensive because it's more expensive to go buy servers and all that and maintain those servers to run your own startup. But with a cloud, it becomes inexpensive. It becomes efficient. So again, the cloud, most people will start migrating to the cloud. And I think they are migrating to the cloud currently. So again, learning the search for cloud, it's important. I'm doing that. I'm trying to get that certification and learn it. I've learned how to use it, but I just don't know the certification yet. So that's the process I'm going through. So again, everything is spot on.
Yeah. So starting off, Cloud Plus, nothing wrong with that. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. So to answer everyone's question last week that we're asking about Cloud Plus, I see nothing wrong with you getting that. You have no other search. This is the fastest cert you can get. That's meaningful. That's going to have some meaning. The recruiters are going to look for it. Hiring managers are going to look at that and say, "Oh, that's nice." Now you have a conversation that wasn't being had before. Recruiting manager or the hiring manager is going to say, "Well, why did you get the Cloud Plus? Let's talk about that." What was the most difficult questions on the Cloud Plus? It's a different conversation that happens with people who have certifications versus those who don't. If you're trying to get in for the first time, if you're already an expert, if you're already a solutions architect or something like that, well, there is no reason to have a certification other than to pad your credentials. Nothing wrong with that either. If I'm a solutions architect, and I can get, AWS Solutions Architect certification, hell yeah, I'm going to get it. Why wouldn't I? If I'm capable of doing it, why not? Put your money where your mouth is. That's how this works. Let me jump to this next item here. This is from the Linux Foundation, Introduction to Jenkins. Okay, somebody in the chat mentioned Jenkins earlier. Learn the fundamentals required to implement CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery workflows using Jenkins Automation Server. Okay, this is new. This just came out the other day. About this course, are you or your team starting to use Jenkins as a CI/CD tool? Are you looking to automate your software delivery process? Do you need guidelines on how to set up your CI/CD workflow using Jenkins Automation Server? If so, this is the course for you. So if you're trying to get into cloud and you need to understand Jenkins, once you get past Cloud Plus, this is where you start to get, you start putting your teeth in. You start to roll your sleeves up. Jenkins is about the automation process in DevOps, okay, and cloud compute.
Mike, in terms of the cloud, there's an AWS administrator cert. Do you think that's going to be important? That's going to be a stepping stone to basically start learning the cloud technology, or do you think these kind of certs are important, or rather than just going to the AWS or going straight to Oracle and take their certs and see they have an AWS administrator cert, they have this cert.
So this is industry standard, right?
Okay, yeah.
Regardless if you use AWS or Azure, this is
Azure.
cross-platform standard, right? This is about native computing.
Well,
Yep. In this course, we'll discuss the fundamentals of CI/CD, and we'll talk about how they help transform the overall software delivery process. It is most useful for the roles such as DevOps engineers, which I mentioned earlier, software developers and architects. I mentioned that earlier. And professionals focus on site reliability and quality assurance, QA, though anyone involved in the software delivery process will benefit. This course offers an introduction to the Jenkins Automation Server and also includes instruction on how to set up, use Jenkins for your CI/CD workflow. Okay, this is an introductory. You really don't, this is my interpretation and my recommendation. You really don't get to this point until you pass what's on Cloud Plus, which is the fundamentals of cloud. Okay, this is assuming that one, you already work in this environment, and two, you have an understanding of what pre-exists before this, which is the cloud compute model structure, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. These business models, these service models have to be taken into consideration before you even get to Jenkins, because with Jenkins, using it for automation on the server, what are you automating if you don't even understand the difference between an infrastructure platform and software as a service? What exactly are you doing? So this is very important, but this was put out earlier this week to reflect some of the cloud engineer program that Linux Foundation put out, and which is one I'm going to get to right now. So this is from the Linux Foundation, 30% off, Cloud Engineer Bootcamp. Okay, this is really the meat and potatoes. I know we talked about AWS and Azure and things like this and things like that, but Linux Foundation they are very rigorous with their training. Okay, they don't play around when it comes to cloud computing and open source. Okay, they are the go-to guys when it comes to open source. I know AWS is really trending, but they're training you based on AWS. They're not training you on cloud. AWS is cloud, but it's brand specific. Okay.
Yeah, but Mike, in terms of other cloud providers, I've seen in every article and AWS is basically the biggest, and is also the most popular. And in terms of innovation, AWS has been said that it innovates faster in terms of cloud computing, faster than Microsoft Azure or Oracle. Basically, what AWS does, everybody else follows.
Well, that's because AWS was first out of the gate, right? They were
And so,
first.
yeah, and they continue to innovate. And again, as they innovate, everybody else comes on board. So, in terms of usage and in terms of, again, innovation, every article and every every usage, even when I use it, because I started using AWS and Azure,
Mhm.
I prefer using AWS because of not only simplicity in terms of generating models, but also basically uploading your data and all that in terms of AWS. Azure is catching up, but AWS in terms of how to basically create algorithms or create models, I'll tell you AWS is I prefer AWS. But again, in terms of everybody else, they are following AWS. So why shouldn't you follow again the leader of the pack in terms of cloud technology?
Well, they're the leader of the pack because they were first out in 2006, 2007, right?
Yeah.
Um, but now companies are who are Microsoft Gold partners, they're not going to leave their Microsoft Gold partnership to go AWS. They might have a few AWS instances spun up, but they're not going to abandon Microsoft because they have a lot invested into that. And Microsoft has tools that have allowed companies, legacy companies, to take their on-premise infrastructure and architecture and lift it into Azure with a few simple mouse clicks. Okay,
With
that changes the trajectory on whether or not AWS will be the leader. By 2022, AWS won't have the lead anymore. It'll be Microsoft running the show, and then Google Cloud will probably come in right behind Microsoft because of some of the integration tools that Google has and the ubiquity of Android and Chrome OS. That sort of stuff matters. AWS does not have anything remotely close to that.
with these courses being formulated now, aren't they going to basically be based on again leader of the pack, the innovators? Though, aren't these courses going to be based on those again AWS cloud technology? It might be broad, but since AWS is leading in that area right now,
No,
isn't these courses basically going to be based on those?
no, no. So let's go through it. So what does the boot camp have, right? Essentials of Linux administration. Listen, Linux system administration. You can't get into cloud unless you know Linux. It's almost impossible, right?
Yeah.
Um, Linux networking administration, very important if you're trying to manage a hybrid model, on-prem and cloud, right? That's going to be important. Um, Linux Foundation Certified System Administrator. If you take this certification, this is a performance-based certification. If you take this, no one can question your legitimacy. You can do your job. That's the way the certification is set up. With AWS, it's a Q&A. You don't really have to prove anything. You can just have this certification that says AWS certified, and people take that seriously just based off of brand recognition, but doesn't necessarily mean that you're actually going to be able to do the job. A person who's certified in LFCS is going to be 10 times stronger than the person who's AWS certified, just because this is performance based. Okay. If you break the machine, you fail the exam. That's how that works. So container fundamentals, we talked about that earlier. Kubernetes, okay. DevOps, SRE fundamentals, site reliability, engineer fundamentals. They're getting you through that process. We talked about that earlier. And then we also talked about introduction to Jenkins. So that plays a significant role into all of this. They already added that into the Kubernetes fundamentals. We talked about that earlier about container fundamentals. And certified Kubernetes administrator. You don't have many people who are really certified in this area. So once you pass all of these things, and it shows up on your LinkedIn account, the real aficionados, they will be the ones to determine. I was in an interview probably last month, and these guys were so top notch in terms of cloud compute and security. They ask questions that go well beyond what's on the exam. And so what I'm saying here is when they see things like this, this takes the questions off the table about whether or not you do know this versus how do you implement something like this. With AWS, you know, you don't really know if it's a lot of point and click inside AWS.
Yeah, a lot of point and click. Yes. You don't know, especially with the data science, you don't know the backstory of it. You don't know what algorithms you're using, if it's a logistics or yes, there's a lot of you're correct with that. There's a lot of point and click.
Yeah, this is about granularization, right?
Now I get what you're talking about. Okay, yes. If in that case, yes, I'll go with the Linux because the AWS is again simplicity. It make it simple, point and click without you understanding what's behind it, the background, understanding the basis of it. Okay, yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, you can't really go wrong with Linux Foundation. They are the basically the sayers in terms of open source compute, not open source compute, but open source technology. They are basically leading the way with Hyperledger, blockchain, and everything else. You really can't go wrong with this. If you can pass this, you're talking about you're a cloud engineer at the highest level, and these sort of jobs pay anywhere between 150 to 175K right out the gate.
Quick question, and I know again it's $6.99. It's a chunk of change for some people, but you can have your company pay for it. Like
no, you put it on your credit card.
Oh, your credit card, yeah.
Put it on a credit card, and at the end of the year, you can
write it off.
Taxes.
Yeah. So again, I'm probably gonna have to look at this cloud engineer bootcamp and see what it is about. But yeah,
you can't beat it. You can't beat it. That's why I recommend a lot of guys, take the Cloud Plus if you're trying to get some decent knowledge and you're trying to get a foot into the door. But you take something like this, and you're on a different level from everyone else.
It gives you that background knowledge. Now I get it.
Yeah.
When you compared, when you said the point and click compare, that just clicked. That's how it is. AWS is your point and click, load it here, do this, click here, change it to a quantity. I get it.
Yep.
I get it now.
Yep, this is where it is. I wouldn't recommend it if I didn't trust Linux Foundation. Everybody I know who has taken Linux Foundation, I've taken some of their courses and certs. I can tell you right now, they are the business. Okay. But, I forgot about this expires on the 30th. So you got until Tuesday at 12 o'clock to actually take advantage of the discount. I don't get anything out of this. I'd be interested in seeing what comes next month because I'm pretty sure that they're going to have something new next month beyond cloud. They're probably going to start doing some stuff with blockchain again and whatnot. So, if I was trying to get into cloud computing right now, if I was trying to get into IT, if I was in the help desk and I was trying to get off a help desk, this is where I would go. This is what I would be doing in my spare time. In being a help desk guy, there's some downtime. I would just be looking through the PDFs and stuff like. I think was it the PDFs? Yeah, I would be looking through the the source material, and it's self-paced, so you do it at your pace, 15 to 20 hours a week for 6 months. Most people spend a year on the help desk. You want to go from help desk to big shot, this is where you're going to be.
Yeah, I agree. That this is a good, based on what I'm seeing, it's a good cert to have. It gives you that background compared to the AWS that teaches you just on AWS and click on, yeah, this is a good cert to have.
Yeah, keep it techie in the chat says, I scheduled my test for August 1st to take the LFCS. Good luck, man. Good luck, man. It does have a free retake, so um, yeah, it says CKA, Certified Kubernetes Administrator, and LFCS include a free retake exam. They're banking on the idea there's a 50-50 chance that you're going to fail. And if you fail, you can take it again for free. I wouldn't mind failing something like this, mostly because I'm under the impression that what I failed and what I know can be measured. Okay. And then I can go back and say, okay, I didn't know that. Let me study up on that, and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna knock that out. Yeah, so good luck to keep it technical.
Yeah, good luck.
So the link is in the docket in the description of the video. You can't miss it. I'll post it on the community tab later after the live stream is over. Artificial intelligence too. We talked about that before. You can go to Udacity, take advantage of that. Classes are only about $1,500. Re-up in the chat says if the ROI is 150,000 a year, Black people paying 300 on Jordans and 1,000 for iPhones. Yeah, it's hard to understand the materialistic addictions that Black people tend to have. It's one of those things, man. It's hard to understand it. Hard to understand it. Priorities are wrong. That's all. People's priorities are mixed up.
That's the problem. Is you're not only, especially with the course, you're not only investing money, you invest in time, you invest in brain power, you invest in more than just money. But with material things, you just paying the money and enjoying it. So again, it's the investment. It's you're investing just more than that money. You invest in a lot of hard work. So again, it, if it's worth it, the ROI, everybody has told you it's in articles and all, invest in AI or learning something, especially with these 3 months we had off, learning something, putting a little sweat into it. It's worth it in terms of monetary. I promise you it's worth it. Learning AI, data science, learning blockchain. You will get people calling you to ask questions, or you can charge what you need or what you want. Again, AI especially, there isn't a lot of people in data science. So again, it's worth it.
All right. Yeah, nothing else really to talk about. CompTIA again. If you're trying to, if you're wondering about getting a Cloud Plus certification from CompTIA, yeah, go ahead and do it. Go right ahead and do it. It's not gonna be doing any damage to your credibility at all to get that certification. It's worth getting. You should be able to pass it as long as you study the material. Okay. After you take the Cloud Plus, go right over there and sign up for that boot camp. Okay. Sign up for the boot camp. Cloud Engineer Boot Camp. Passing the Cloud Plus, what that's going to do is going to prep you on whether or not you're ready to get into that. If you fail the Cloud Plus for whatever reason, then that means you need to really go back and reassess your knowledge on cloud compute. Okay, very important. Can't pass Cloud Plus, you can't go into a boot camp. Almost impossible. Getting a Cloud Plus is like getting a driver's permit versus going to the boot camp when you're trying to acquire your CDL. I don't want you backing up my trucks or even getting in my trucks if you can't even pass your permit, right? Yeah, shout out to Re-Up, man. Shout out to Re-Up. He says at that level, you might want to consider the Capital Factory and be amongst the tech startup crowd. Yeah, yeah. But you got to have a strong um, comprehension of what it is that you're getting yourself into. I mean, we talk about AI, machine learning, cloud, blockchain, okay? We talk about all of the IoT, 5G. We talk about all of these technologies because you're going to be expected to know all of this. Not be an expert, but expected to know it. Someone asked me about 5G, I already know it. Someone asked me about IoT, I already know it. Do I understand AI and machine learning? Yeah. Do I understand blockchain? Yeah. And its business cases and business use cases? Yeah.
So with Mike, with all this technology and everything, blockchain, AI, cloud computing, again with the certs, but other than certs, where would you recommend people start learning about these technologies, about the implementation, about the advantages, about how these technologies are innovating different places, different sectors? So if someone wants to just say, okay, I'm interested in this, what would be the first step you might basically advise someone to basically do?
Oh man, pick up a book, man. I always recommend Pearson published, not Pearson, Pearson IT certification. Okay, Pearson IT cert. Let me pull it up for you guys because they may not know. Share my screen real quick. Yeah, look at this Red Hat bundle. You really can't beat things like this. Okay, can't beat things like this. A bundle like this, 65% off. 117 bucks, marked down from $335. Can't beat that. If you become a Red Hat certified system administrator, these jobs pay 150, 140K. Easy. Easy. I don't know any Linux administrator that's not making above $100,000. Easy. All the guys I know who are pretty fluent in Linux administration, they're doing big numbers. They're doing big numbers, and they're in a niche factor market because they don't have a whole lot of Linux system administrators out there. There's some people who know Linux, but there's guys who are certified, and you can verify their skill set through their certification. Okay. I don't have this book in particular. I think I have like Red Hat 7 or Red Hat 6 or something like that. But the information is still relevant. If you just want to know the fundamentals, it's still all relevant. Okay. I'm a big advocate for Pearson IT books because I think that they're thoroughly designed for beginners. Let's see if we can find a book on artificial intelligence. It might be spelled. It might be using a different term. I'm not sure what. Let me see. Um,
Probably use machine learning.
they had a book here because I have it right here in front of me, and I got it from them. So, um, yeah, pragmatic AI. That's what they call it. Pragmatic AI. They don't have it right now. I don't know. They seem to change their website up a lot. Usually a book may be discontinued or something like that. But anyways, the point that we're making here is that Pearson is actually a very good source for IT books, and so you really can't go wrong with it. This is where I get all my books from. I don't buy from Amazon. I actually buy from here. If I can't find it here, I usually don't buy it at all. I just don't support Amazon for my own personal reasons. I'm boycotting them. But this is my source. So when you ask me, engineering cannabis, where can people go? Well, Pearson IT certification is my place to go.
So start with books, then go forward with other materials, YouTube, other source materials to basically understand the introductory part of any tech they're looking into, AI, IoT, and all that, especially with IoT and blockchain. Start with books, then transition into YouTube and all that, and then again continue. And I agree with that.
Yep. Yep. Reading is more important than anything else. You don't need to be
Yeah.
certified in artificial intelligence and machine learning. You don't need
No.
to be certified in something like that. You need to be able to apply it.
Yeah, you need to do it, especially with again with AWS, with clicking with just a click of a button, you can run an algorithm. But understanding what's behind the button, the GUI, the GUI, and understanding the mathematics behind it is the key stuff. It makes it much easier and makes it easier to even get a job. That I know for a fact.
Mhm.
So, and again, if you to understand it behind it too, you can also understand solve problems, and even start with startups and all that. You have to understand the technology, what's behind the technology, with AI, the mathematics, the statistics, again, computer science and Python and all that.
Mhm. All right, man. Please hit the like button if not already done so. Share the video if possible and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Braid Trust. Including those posted on the community tab. If you're trying to get into IT for the first time, we do offer IT mentorship. There is a email in the chat for you to email. If you're trying to transition from one IT role to another, we do offer IT coaching. So shalom to everyone, and thanks to Engineering Cannabis for coming up here.